These 8 useful English words will boost your everyday fluency and your IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge score. And you won't just memorize them. You'll meet each one inside the story, feel what it means, then prove you caught it. That's how your brain keeps them for good. On the morning of the village bake-off, someone crept to Nadia's table and quietly tipped salt into her sugar. They were certain it would ruin her. They could not have been more wrong. For 5 years running, the Ashbourne bake-off had been won by Mrs. Pratt. She was a tall, conceited woman who wore her blue ribbons to church and reminded everyone often that no one else stood a chance. When she saw Nadia unpacking her flour that morning, she gloated openly. "A newcomer," she said with a thin smile. "How brave." Nadia had moved to the village only that spring. She baked the way her late mother had taught her, slowly, by feel, with no fancy tricks. She had entered the contest on a whim, and now, under Mrs. Pratt's cold stare, she rather wished she hadn't. Her hands shook as she laid out her bowls and jars. Her plan was a tall lemon cake, 3 layers high. She had practiced it a dozen times at home. She mixed her first batch of batter, slid it into the oven, and let herself breathe. For one moment watching it rise, she almost felt that she belonged. She did not see Mrs. Pratt drift past her table. She did not see the quick hand that tipped fine white salt into her open sugar jar. It was a small, mean act of sabotage, and Mrs. Pratt walked away certain of it. She had tampered with the newcomer's sugar, and now, she thought, the silly girl's grand cake would bake into something no one alive could eat. Nadia began her second batch for the top layer. Out of an old habit her mother had drummed into her, she dipped a finger to taste the batter before it went in. She froze. It was bitter, wrong, salty. Someone had tampered with her sugar. In a flash, she understood, and across the hall, Mrs. Pratt was watching her with a small, conceited smile. Nadia's heart pounded. There was no time to start the lemon cake again. All around her, the other bakers were already icing their towers and spinning their sugar into glass. She had 20 minutes and a ruined plan. She wanted to cry. She wanted to march across the hall and accuse Mrs. Pratt in front of the whole village. Instead, she shut her eyes and thought of her mother's kitchen. Then she did the only thing she could. She threw out the fancy plan and baked the one thing she knew entirely by heart, a small, plain honey cake, the cake her mother had made every Sunday of her childhood. No towers, no spun sugar, just honey, butter, and memory. Mrs. Pratt saw the little brown cake come out of Nadia's oven and gloated. Beside it, her own showpiece was a glittering white castle, 4 layers tall. As she carried it proudly toward the judging table, she gave Nadia a look of pure triumph. But she was hurrying, and she did not notice that her grand cake had already begun to crumble at one corner, where she had cut it far too soon. What Mrs. Pratt did not know was this. She had carried her salt to the hall in a jar exactly like her own sugar jar, and set the 2 side by side at her station. And in the rush and the thrill of her nasty little trick, she had reached for the wrong one. The grand white castle she had just baked was made not of sugar, but of salt. The head judge was old Miss Earnshaw, who had tasted 40 years of village cakes. She cut a slice of Mrs. Pratt's castle first. She chewed once. Her face went very still. The cake was beautiful and utterly bland. Worse than bland, with a sharp salt bite that sent her reaching fast for her glass of water. She set down her fork and said nothing at all. Then she tasted Nadia's plain honey cake. She closed her eyes, she chewed slowly, and then she chewed again, and the whole hall watched her savor it. "This," she said softly, "tastes of someone's home." She took a second forkful and savored that one too, the way you savor a thing you have not had since you were small. Miss Earnshaw rose to her feet. "Baking is not about castles," she said. "It is about honesty. And this little honey cake is the most honest thing I have eaten in years." She pinned the blue ribbon to Nadia's table. For the first time in 5 years, Mrs. Pratt had not won. Beaten by the very cake she had tried to sabotage, Mrs. Pratt's conceited smile was gone. Her grand white castle sat untouched on the table, slowly crumbling, far too salty for a single guest to finish. She had set a trap of salt for a stranger, and she had walked straight into it herself. Nadia carried her mother's recipe home that evening with a blue ribbon and wet eyes. She had not made the tallest cake or the cleverest one. She had simply made something true. And in a small village hall, on an ordinary Saturday, that had turned out to be more than enough. Now, did you catch all 8? Let's find out. A noun for a quantity of something made or baked at one time. Think of a fresh tray of cookies all pulled from the oven together. Nadia mixed her first one of these for the bottom layer of her cake. She poured her second what of batter into the waiting tin.
The word is bætʃ.
She pulled a fresh batch of warm bread from the oven. An adjective meaning far too proud of yourself and self-satisfied. Think of someone who cannot stop admiring how wonderful they are. Mrs. Pratt was this, certain no one could ever bake better than her. Her what kind of little smile vanished the moment the judge frowned.
The word is conceited.
He was so conceited that he thought everyone admired him. A verb meaning to break apart into small pieces or crumbs. It's what a dry old biscuit does the second you pick it up. Mrs. Pratt's tall cake began to do this at one cut corner. The salty white castle began to do what? Break into a sad little heap?
The word is crumble.
The old stone wall had begun to crumble after years of rain. An adjective meaning dull and lacking any taste or flavor. Think of plain boiled rice with no salt, no spice, no sauce at all. Mrs. Pratt's beautiful cake turned out to be exactly this. The grand castle looked stunning, but tasted flat and what?
The word is bland.
The soup was warm but bland, so I added more pepper. A verb meaning to show mean, smug delight at your own success. It's what a sore winner does, rubbing a victory in your face. Mrs. Pratt did this openly when she saw the newcomer's tiny cake. She began to do what far too soon, before the judging had even begun?
The word is gloat.
It is unkind to gloat over a rival's bad luck. A verb meaning to interfere with something in order to spoil or change it. It's what a cheat does when they secretly mess with a rival's gear. Mrs. Pratt did this to Nadia's sugar, tipping fine salt into the jar. Someone had done what to the jars on Nadia's table while she wasn't looking?
The word is tamper.
The lock showed signs that a thief had tried to tamper with it. A verb meaning to secretly and deliberately ruin or wreck something. It's what an enemy agent does to wreck a machine from the inside. Tipping salt into the sugar was Mrs. Pratt's attempt to do this. Her plan to do what? Secretly wreck the newcomer's cake? Backfired on herself instead?
The word is sabotage.
Rebels tried to sabotage the railway by loosening the track. A verb meaning to enjoy a taste or a moment slowly and fully. It's what you do with the very last bite of a meal you love. The judge closed her eyes to do this with Nadia's honey cake. She paused to do what? Enjoy the warm honey flavor slowly, bite by bite.
The word is savour.
He liked to savor every spoonful of his grandmother's rich stew. Quick recap. How many do you still remember?
Bætʃ. Conceited. Crumble. Bland. Gloat. Tamper. Sabotage. Savour.
A new English story every day. Subscribe and learn useful words the way your brain actually keeps them. Inside a story you won't forget.